Hello, and welcome to the Science for Sleepy, a place where drifting minds and quiet hearts meet the gentlest corners of curiosity. Tonight, we begin not with a bang, but with a falling apple. Not just one apple, but an orchard of them, suspended in moonlight, each hanging motionless, held by the invisible fingers of gravity. They do not fall yet. They wait, as you do, for the hush between seconds, the whisper before movement, the breath before wonder. If you're enjoying this quiet journey through curiosity and time, consider subscribing. There's always more to explore, gently. We'd love to know your location and time zone in the comments. Now let us begin. We begin, quite naturally, where gravity first spoke a language we tried to understand, beneath a tree in Lincolnshire centuries ago. The apple, so often repeated in school books and stories, was never loud. It did not thud. It barely made a sound at all. But in that moment, if we listen with our dream ears, we might hear something more. The downward pull, so quiet, so constant, sings a tone lower than any ear could detect, a subsonic lullaby. Gravity on Earth is a patient singer. You've heard it before in the creak of old wooden staircases, the hush of rain pulled downward onto rooftops, the way waves pull themselves ashore with breathy persistence. Every sound you know, every thump, whisper, footstep and falling leaf is shaped by it. Gravity is the sculptor of sound's shape, the frame for every note's rise and fall. We rarely think of gravity as something we can hear, but sound is not only pressure and air, it is context, it is response. Sound happens differently depending on how tightly the world holds on to you. And here on Earth, gravity embraces us just enough to give music weight, to give thunder its crash and wind its voice in the trees. Imagine lying on your back in a meadow under the stars, your body gently pressed into the earth, each limb subtly aware of its own weight. The breeze across your face carries distant insect wings and the rustle of grass. But underneath it all is gravity, pulling everything softly downward, ensuring every sound has a direction. Down, always down. We've come to take that pull for granted. But what if it were different? What if the pull were stronger, or weaker, or alien altogether? What if sound, as shaped by gravity, changed its colours and behaviours as we move from planet to planet? Imagine for a moment a place where gravity only just exists, where a dropped object barely commits to falling, drifting instead like a feather, and the sound of that drop becomes a whisper with no urgency. Or another place, where gravity presses so firmly that every footstep slams with heavy bass, where voices grow deeper, slower, more deliberate. We often associate planets with what they look like: red, blue, striped, icy. But what about how they sound under the influence of their own gravity? And what does gravity sound like when you cannot hear it, but feel it instead? We're going to listen with more than ears tonight. Close your eyes and imagine gravity not as a force, but as a tone, a presence. On Earth, it might be a cello played softly in a quiet room, warm, low, anchoring. It grounds us. On other worlds, the instruments change, the tuning shifts, but the music continues. We take a step now, a gentle, unhurried step, away from this familiar ground. Not with rockets, not with engines, but with our minds, our senses dimmed, our curiosity alive. We will let gravity guide us not by its weight, but by its song. The Earth grows quieter as we rise above it, as if the planet is slowly turning down its volume. The hum of cities fades, the rustling of forests grows still. We leave behind the comforting density of our atmosphere and float just outside its edge, where gravity still reaches but no longer holds. The stars open up like a theatre curtain, slow and elegant, and we drift toward our first stop, the moon. Just as it pulls at our tides, we now feel its pull on us. It is faint, just a fraction of Earth's, but it is enough. As the moon draws near, Earth becomes a marble behind us, and the familiar sounds of our home fade entirely. What remains is a hush. The moon, with its low gravity and empty skies, invites us to listen in a new way. But for now, we remain suspended, between one gravity and the next. The in-between is important. It reminds us that silence is not absence, it is anticipation. In the next moment, we will touch down. But first, breathe. Let your thoughts grow quiet. Let the idea of gravity become not a fact, but a feeling. The feeling of being held, the feeling of being pulled, the feeling of sound waiting to be born. The moon greets us not with fanfare, but with quiet expectation. We land softly, lighter than we're used to. The soles of our feet touch dust that's never known rain. It doesn't scatter like sand on a beach. It clings, it folds, it remembers. Each step we take presses down less than it would on Earth, leaving behind gentle prints, shallow yet eternal. The gravity here is only 1/6 of what we know. That means our bodies don't fall, they drift. Every movement is drawn out like slow ballet. There is no wind, no rustle, no bird song. Sound is swallowed before it's born, not because the moon is unfriendly, but because its silence is sacred. You take a step forward. Your boot makes contact with the powdery regolith, and a vibration moves through it. You don't hear the crunch, you feel it. A tremble in your heel, a delay in the feedback. Sound cannot travel through the vacuum around you, so it finds other ways. Through your suit, through the ground, through your bones. Imagine placing your hand on the ground, gloved and careful. There is no air to carry whispers, but still, you listen. Deep inside the moon, old heat stirs, ancient tectonic sighs. The moon creaks, not often, not loudly, but sometimes the pressure inside its belly shifts just enough to fracture a stone. These are called moonquakes, and if we could hear them, they might sound like a low metallic moan, drawn out, hollow, distant. In the absence of air, sound is memory in motion. The Apollo astronauts once struck a tool against the lunar module, and the vibration travelled through their suits, not the air. Imagine that. Not hearing a knock, but sensing it in your spine. Here, the gravity does not force, it invites. It allows you to rise higher with a jump. And when you fall back, the descent is slow, like a dream you can't quite wake from. The sound of your own movement, thud, touch, recoil, is less about hearing and more about timing. Delay becomes music. You begin to anticipate your own landing, your own breath. Now pause, look up. Earth hovers in the sky above, glowing with colour and movement. From here, it seems noisy. You can almost imagine the hum of traffic, the calls of animals, the chatter of people. But here, none of that reaches you. Not one sound. Earth is visible, but silent. The ultimate paradox. Turn back to the moon. If you walk far enough, you reach a crater rim, and beyond it, endless darkness. You sit, float really at its edge, and you wonder, if gravity here is so gentle, what would music sound like if it could be played? A violin perhaps, but slower, softer, played in one long continuous note, as if even the strings respect the silence. The vibration of the bow might travel down the arm, into the suit, into the ground, and still no one would hear it in air. But in your body, perhaps. If gravity shapes how quickly things fall, how firmly things press against one another, then sound here becomes hesitant. It resists sharpness, It favours echo. But without atmosphere, there's no echo either. Just impression. It is strange, isn't it? A place where gravity is present but air is not. Where weight exists but sound does not carry. The moon is not silent because nothing happens. It is silent because its gravity pulls without a voice. Still, there is something. The sound you make in your mind when you look across its plains, the imagined resonance of stillness, a tone that isn't heard but felt, like a memory trying to surface. Gravity here hums just at the edge of experience. If you lie back, float slightly in your reduced weight, and close your eyes, the moon's silence becomes full. You begin to sense the gravity not as downward, but as inward, as if you are not being pulled to the surface, but toward the moon's quiet heart. There perhaps sound lives, hidden, waiting. Now rise again. Dust puffs up in slow motion beneath your feet, catching the sunlight, then drifting back like lazy snow. No sound accompanies it, and yet you feel, unmistakably, that something is singing. Not in notes, not in melody, but in texture, in rhythm, in time slowed down. We take one last look at the footprints we've made. They will remain for thousands of years untouched by wind or rain. Sound, too, if it could be made, would remain. No erosion, no decay, just an eternal note, pure and undisturbed. But we cannot stay. The moon's gravity is soft, but it does not hold us. It nudges, it cradles, it lets go. We drift again, upward, away, toward the next voice in our symphony of gravity. Venus awaits. Venus looms ahead, not as a beacon, but as a smoulder. You do not see its surface. No one does. It is hidden beneath a permanent blanket of cloud, thick and sulphurous. Yellow-grey swirls churn slowly beneath the atmosphere, which is heavier than anything we felt before. Gravity here is nearly Earth's equal, but that's not what you notice first. You notice the weight of the air. As you descend, the pressure builds. Your ears ring, not from altitude, but from compression. Everything tightens. The clouds wrap around you like wool soaked in oil, and sound here, unlike on the moon, is not silenced. It is suffocated, amplified, thickened, slowed. Imagine dropping a stone. On Earth, it falls with a clean rush, a whoosh and a clack. On Venus, the same stone would move slower through the heavy air, and the sound of its fall would stretch out into a low, syrupy murmur. Not loud, but deep, almost reluctant. Even the smallest sounds feel like they echo through layers of velvet. Footsteps become drum beats. A breath feels like thunder, if only inside your helmet. You imagine a whisper, and even that, carried by such dense air, might travel farther than you'd expect. Its tone altered, distorted, pulled down into the lower registers of audibility. The temperature outside your suit is unimaginably hot, enough to melt lead. But in your protected bubble, you hear your own heartbeat more clearly than ever. It thumps not just in your chest, but in your ears, in your throat, in the soles of your feet. Venus turns sound inward. Even your voice, if you dared to speak, would change. It would become lower, stretched by the pressure. You would sound older, more distant. Words would take longer to form and longer still to fade. Pause here. Feel that. The heaviness of a world wrapped in its own atmosphere, refusing to be seen. Venus doesn't scream. It drones. It hums from beneath its surface with the menace of geological time. Volcanic plains bubble beneath the clouds, and if you could hear them, it would not be sharp eruptions, but slow, tectonic growls, like the Earth's stomach rumbling in sleep. In the distance, lightning flickers in the clouds. Unlike Earth's high, cracking whip, lightning on Venus is muffled, its roar struggling through the density. The thunder here does not split the sky. It lingers, curling through the fog like a cello drawn across miles. We float now, just above the surface, not touching it, not here. We only listen. Raindrops fall, not of water, but of acid. They hiss when they strike the surface, but the sound does not pierce. It rolls, as if the whole planet exhales, endlessly. The clouds churn in slow motion, and if you close your eyes, you can imagine the sound as something orchestral, not violins or flutes, but bass drums rolled slowly against the Earth's own heartbeat. Gravity here is familiar in strength, but unfamiliar in tone. It does not invite motion, it resists it. Everything is harder to lift, to push, to carry. But sound, curiously, is helped by the atmosphere. It travels farther, deeper, richer. Imagine placing your hand against a rock. You tap it. On the moon, nothing would come back. Here, the vibration lingers, spreads through the air and surrounds you with its slow echo. Even silence is thicker. Venus, you realize, is not a place of silence at all. It is a place of muffled storm, of pressure symphonies, of buried songs. Gravity here sounds like memory, low, distorted, and impossible to forget. We float higher now, rising through the acidic clouds, through pressure and heat, into thinner layers of air. The sounds begin to change, less weighted, less resonant. The drone of the surface gives way to the whisper of winds, still warm but no longer oppressive. And here, above the worst of the storm, we pause. The clouds spread endlessly beneath us. Imagine running a finger through them. The sound would be like thick paper torn slowly in half. It wouldn't be clean, it would stick, struggle, resist. Yet despite all of this, Venus sings, not in a key we know, but in a register we feel. Deep below the crust, volcanic forces stir. Each tremor, if translated into music, would be a single drawn-out note, not sharp, not shrill, just unrelenting. We do not stay long. Venus is not a resting place. It is a reminder that not all music is meant to soothe. Some sounds are not heard, but felt, heavy in the bones and the breath. And now the gravity begins to let go. You feel lighter, rising through the upper sky, where the air thins and the pressure fades. The drone quiets, the thunder slips away, the hiss of acid rain grows distant. What remains is just the memory of vibration, a hum at the base of your neck. We look ahead. Mars calls next, not as loud, not as heavy, but no less compelling. Its gravity is weaker, but its silence, in its own way, is louder still. Mars appears as a quiet ember against the velvet dark, rust-coloured and unblinking. As we descend, its silence welcomes us like a desert at dusk. The air here is thin, barely more than a whisper of atmosphere, and the gravity, only about a third of Earth's, feels like a gentle hand guiding you downward rather than pulling. Your feet touch regolith once more. It is not unlike the moon's surface, dry, powdery, ancient. But here there is sky, a faint atmosphere, enough to blur the horizon with soft haze, enough for sound barely, and that changes everything. You kneel, slowly. Every movement takes less effort. Lighter, quieter. You scoop a handful of dust and let it trickle through your gloved fingers. It makes no sound you can hear, but you imagine what it would sound like if it could. Like chalk crumbling between fingertips, software dispersed, forgotten the moment it begins. A breeze passes, almost imperceptible. The Martian wind does not howl. It sighs. You stand and walk slowly. Each step puffs up a small cloud of dust, settling seconds later. If you listen with your breath held, you might catch the rasp of grit brushing against your suit, the hiss of air filtering through the vents, Mars requires you to imagine sound just beyond the threshold of hearing. It teases the ear. Gravity here makes movement strange. Your legs expect more resistance than they receive. Every footfall is slightly too long, every stride a little too high. If music were to be played here, it would stretch unnaturally. Rhythms drifting, beats arriving too late. Even a drum beat would feel like it's moving through molasses, the air too thin to deliver it cleanly. Now imagine speaking. Your voice, inside your suit, is normal. But if it escaped, it would be a ghost. The thin atmosphere, mostly carbon dioxide, cannot hold sound well. Your words would fade almost immediately, stripped of volume and clarity. What remains would be lower in pitch, the bass tones emphasized, the highs erased. You would sound slower, duller, not muted, just distant. Close your eyes. Imagine a dust devil swirling in the distance. On Earth it would roar. Here it rasps, like dry paper caught in a lazy spiral. The wind catches rocks and dust, spins them across the plain. They hit and roll, and their collisions might create a dry rattle, faint, short, and strangely musical. But only if you're near, only if you listen through the ground itself. We wander now through the remains of an old crater. Its walls rise around us in gentle curves, coloured in reds and browns and ancient silence. Mars once had more, rivers, maybe seas. If they returned, if water flowed again, what sound would it carry? Would the streams whisper differently under lesser gravity? Would waves crash more slowly, foam suspended longer in the air? Perhaps, or perhaps they would sing like Earth's water, but lonelier, as if remembering how to make noise after too many quiet years. Pause at the crater's centre. Sit. Beneath you, the planet is still alive. Occasionally it quakes. Small, soft tremors move through the crust, called Marsquakes. Not violent, not dangerous, just reminders, gentle nudges that something still breathes here. If you could hear them, they would not roar. They would groan like settling wood, or the bow of a ship shifting in calm waters. And because the atmosphere is thin, most of that sound would travel through the rock itself, into your bones, your spine, your thoughts. Now, tilt your head skyward. The sky is not blue. It is butterscotch, salmon, dust-tinged. And in that sky, just before sunset, you might see the moons of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, slipping by like stones skimmed across a still lake. Their orbits are fast, and in their passing they tug softly on the Martian surface, barely, but perhaps enough that, if you were very still, very quiet, you'd feel a rhythm, not a sound, a presence. Mars does not sing with volume, it hums with waiting. Imagine placing an instrument here, a cello. You draw the bow across the string. The note is born but distorted. The thin air thins the sound. The vibration is present, but weak. You would have to lean in to hear it, and yet, it would still be music. That's what Mars teaches, that music does not need to be loud, that gravity, sound, and silence are three strings of the same instrument, tuned differently on each world. We rise again, slowly. The lighter gravity makes it easier. Each step upward from the crater is less burdened, less noise, less force. You pause at the rim and take one last look across the empty plain, and in that stillness, you sense a melody not in the ears, but in the air pressure against your suit, in the rhythm of your own steps, in the timing of dust as it falls. Mars is not loud, but it listens. As we lift off, you realize that silence, when paired with soft gravity, becomes a kind of music, one that only patient minds can hear. Next, we are called by thunder, the thunder that never ends. Jupiter waits. Jupiter does not wait in silence, it never has. As we approach, the planet does not grow larger. It unfolds. Stripes and swirls, copper and cream, stretch endlessly across its enormous body. There is no ground here, no solid place to stand. Jupiter is gas, depth, and fury. Its gravity, the strongest of all the planets, reaches out long before we arrive. It grabs hold of us like a storm pulling ships into its centre. There is no gentle landing here. We drift into clouds, thicker than oceans, charged with storms that never sleep. Lightning flashes below, illuminating layers of clouds so massive they swallow cities whole. The wind is unthinkably fast, spiralling around the planet in belts of chaos. This is where gravity makes sound loud, not sharp, not precise, but deep, resonant, endless. If we could survive inside Jupiter's upper atmosphere, the soundscape would be overwhelming. The sheer density of gas compressed under gravity's relentless press means sound travels farther, faster, and fuller than almost anywhere else. A single crack of lightning here might ring like a cathedral bell 500 miles wide. Thunder wouldn't end, it would roll, layer upon layer folding into itself. Imagine the air trembling with every pulse of the planet's breath. You float, barely, helplessly, and your body vibrates, not from impact, but from sound. Jupiter's gravity compresses everything, and in that compression, sound becomes pressure. Not something you hear, but something that happens to you. In this upper world of wind, the atmosphere sings in slow-motion symphonies. The clouds themselves groan as they fold into one another. Each swirl of ammonia and hydrogen becomes a brushstroke of vibration. The planet does not whisper. It bellows in tones too low for human ears. Close your eyes and imagine listening not with ears but with skin. The gas wraps around you like velvet soaked in thunder. You cannot point to one sound. It is all sound. It is hum and pulse and tension. Music, here, is pressure, deep, slow, and circular. Then there is the great red spot, an ancient storm large enough to hold 2 Earths. It spins and spins endlessly, like a whirlpool of anger that never touches a shore. If you could float above it, the sound might resemble the low grinding of a colossal machine. Not a scream, not a roar, just persistence. Relentless movement shaped by gravity and heat. And all around this spot the planet responds. Thunder cracks, lightning stutters, wind howls in circles, each piece of atmosphere pulled tight, taut, ready to release, and then never does. Now imagine a piano, impossibly large, suspended in Jupiter's clouds. Its keys are struck by storm. Each note falls into the gravity well and stretches. A simple chord becomes a seismic wave. Music becomes something geological. And underneath it all, deeper than the clouds, beyond where light can reach, lies the core. Still debated. Perhaps solid. Perhaps not. But if it exists, it hums. A deep, slow vibration, shaped by gravity and time. You would not hear it directly, but you might feel it as a shift in your thoughts, as a tremor in the silence between moments. Pause. There is no up or down here. Gravity does not pull to a surface. It pulls inward, to a center you will never touch. Every direction feels like descent. The atmosphere thickens as we drift deeper, and the sound, already immense, grows heavier. You imagine trying to speak. Your voice would be swallowed immediately, absorbed by air too dense to resist. Words would turn to vibration, and vibration would become indistinguishable from the background roar. On Jupiter, your voice becomes part of the planet's weather. Here, gravity makes sound matter more, and you matter less. You're a leaf in a hurricane, but strangely, it does not feel violent. It feels inevitable. This is how Jupiter breathes, Let's float a little longer. Between layers of cloud in brief calm pockets, we hear something else, harmonics, standing waves, vibrations bouncing between the upper and lower atmospheres. Jupiter is so large that sound waves can circle it entirely. These standing waves ring out in patterns, like a bowl being struck. The planet is a bell. Its gravity makes it sing. No note here is short. Each one takes hours. Sound stretches with sighs. A single note played on Earth would become an hour-long tremble on Jupiter, shaped by the planet's vastness and the way gravity holds everything tight. There is beauty in the enormity, in the slow, in the deep. Eventually we begin to rise. The pressure relents. The sound dims, not because it ends, but because we grow distant from it. The storm continues without us. We're not missed. Jupiter does not sing for company. Its gravity makes its own music. And now another call reaches us. From one of its moons, Io. A smaller place, yet louder in another way. A place where gravity does not cradle sound. It wrenches it from stone. Io appears as a wound in space, yellow, red, and white, streaked with scars and sores. Unlike its quiet siblings, it is alive in a way few moons are. Beneath its surface, tides do not roll with water, but with molten rock. Gravity here is not a background presence. It is a force of violence. Io is pulled between Jupiter and its neighbouring moons, torn like dough in opposing hands. The result is constant stretching, flexing, internal churning. It quakes not occasionally, but endlessly. Volcanic eruptions mark its surface like punctuation, the punctuation of pain. As we descend, we do not expect silence, and we are not given it. Io's gravity is only slightly weaker than Earth's, but what defines it is not its strength. It is its conflict. Gravity here is never settled, always distorted, twisted by proximity to Jupiter's immense pull. The crust moves, not smoothly, but in fractures. You land softly, but the ground beneath you never feels still. It vibrates, like something breathing wrong, something clenched. Even in the thin atmosphere, mostly sulfur dioxide, sound travels, but poorly. Yet there is enough of vibrations to carry, if barely. What you hear isn't clear, but it is insistent. Close your eyes. Feel the rumbles deep and irregular, like enormous stones falling in distant caverns. Every few moments, a soft crack rolls across the ground, the sound of ice splitting, of magma shifting beneath the brittle crust. Some tremors are sharp, some distant, some impossible to locate, but none are absent. You walk slowly, cautiously. The landscape is unpredictable. Flat plains scarred with fresh lava, rising plumes of gas shooting from fissures. You approach one, carefully. Not close, but close enough to feel the heat pushing upward. If sound could survive fully here, it might resemble the shriek of a train brake, high, metallic, endless. Instead, you feel it as pressure, the frequency of forced escape. Io does not whisper, it screams, but only in partial voice. Gravity here pulls and tears at its insides, and in response the planet shrieks back in eruptions. The surface fractures are like strings plucked too hard. The pitch, if it exists at all, is dissonant, off-key, angry. Imagine a cello made of stone. Each time the gravitational tides shift, and they do, frequently. The strings are bowed against their will. The music is volcanic, reluctant, cracked, and yet there is rhythm, a pattern to the chaos. The tidal forces from Jupiter pull at Io with clockwork precision. Every orbit, every alignment, every pass, pressure builds and is released. It is like a song with only one note, but played louder and louder until it becomes unbearable. Beneath your boots, you feel another quake, not large, but deep, the kind of quake that hums through your bones. Sound here is felt more than heard. The vibration in your chest, the slight tilt of the ground, a harmonic you never ask for. Now pause, look across the horizon. Volcanoes dot the plains like frozen fountains, plumes reaching dozens of kilometers high. If there were air enough to carry their voice, they might roar like freight trains. Instead, we hear nothing, and that silence, in contrast to their violence, becomes deafening. In a world so active, silence feels wrong. Even your own breath contained within your suit begins to seem too loud. It competes with the ghost sounds around you, the phantom roars, the remembered quakes, the imagined songs of magma breaking stone. You touch the ground, gloved to rock. It's warm, alive. Imagine placing a microphone here. It would record not melody, but motion. Not lyrics, but low, cracked frequencies. The thrum of geology forced into dance. And yet, there is a kind of beauty to the chaos. Like drums played by tectonic hands, Io's surface responds to gravity's pull not with grace, but with persistence. There is no surrender, only response, only resistance. We rise again, carried upward through sulfur fog. The noise of eruptions fades, the quakes grow distant, and yet, in the bones of memory, they linger. Gravity on Io is not merely a pull. It is a conversation, rough, loud, and unwilling. It demands, it threatens, it shouts. But now, a new quiet calls. We leave the chaos behind, slipping past Jupiter once more, and ahead, a frozen moon waits. Its silence is deeper. Its music, beneath the ice, Europa. Europa turns slowly, a pale pearl gliding through Jupiter's enormous gravity well. Unlike fiery Io, Europa holds its voice close. Its surface is smooth, veined with long, winding cracks, not like a broken thing, but like something ancient sealed shut. You drift toward it, weightless for a moment in the hush between moons. As you descend, there is a strange sense of approach, not toward a place, but toward a memory. Europa feels like a held breath, cold, waiting, listening. It says nothing, but what lies beneath is never still. You touch down gently. The gravity here is soft, just a fraction of Earth's. The surface, smooth and brittle, creaks faintly under your boots. You stand on ice that may be just kilometers thick, and beneath it, an ocean. Salt water, dark and pressurized, sloshing in eternal night. There is no air to carry sound around you, but kneel. Press your gloved hand to the ice. Feel it. Europa's music comes from beneath. At first only silence. Then a dull, occasional knock. A low groan. A whispering stretch of pressure moving through the ice like a distant whale song trapped in crystal. The ocean below shifts, not in chaos, but in rhythm. Jupiter's gravity tugs at it constantly, rocking it beneath the crust. Tides without wind, waves without moonlight, and each movement presses upward, straining the shell. You imagine the sound of those pressures, a slow creak, like a frozen lake flexing under a heavy wind, a crack forming, not all at once, but over long, aching minutes, a moan so low and slow that it becomes part of the landscape. There are fractures across Europa's surface that suggest this, long scars where the ice is pulled apart and refrozen. If you walked along one, your footsteps would echo only within your suit, but beneath you, vibrations might ripple downward. Perhaps they reach the water. Perhaps something listens. Pause. Now place your ear, helmeted, to the ice. You hear nothing. But inside your mind, translate vibration into sound. A distant bubble rising through heavy water. A groan that sounds like sadness pressed into stone. a rumble with no clear source, like a secret stirred awake. Europa's gravity does not create force the way Eo's does. It pulls just enough to allow the ocean its movement, and just little enough that the crust holds on. Barely. This tension, the balance between containment and release, is what creates the planet's music. Imagine a string held too tight to vibrate freely. It hums without sound, always threatening to snap. And what lies beneath? That is the mystery. Perhaps hydrothermal vents line the ocean floor as they do on Earth. Perhaps they hiss. Perhaps they roar. Perhaps they send out pulses through the deep like bass drums beneath blankets. The pressure down there would be immense, and yet, in that pressure, a kind of comfort. Sound travels well in water, especially when shaped by gravity this way. It becomes sculpted, curved through, the sphere of the planet. And if something swims down there, if anything lives, its sense of hearing would be more than sensory. It would be spiritual. It would feel pressure changes like we feel emotion, slow, powerful, unspoken. Songs sung in sonar, pulsing through blackness. But for now, we remain above, still, quiet. You walk toward a patch of surface that gleams slightly more, a place where new ice has recently frozen. Your boots make no sound, but the vibration spreads. You pause, crouch, wait. A shudder, not violent, just real. Gravity pulls Jupiter's moons into their own rhythm, a shared dance of subtle violence, and on Europa, that dance becomes music through friction, silence through restraint. Here, the cello is buried, its strings are underwater, the bow is tidal force, and the player is gravity itself. You lie on your back and look up. Stars shine coldly. Jupiter looms, massive in the sky, a constant presence. Its storms swirl and its pull is never-ending. But from here, it is silent. Its thunder, so loud inside itself, cannot pass the vacuum between. In this silence, Europa becomes louder. You close your eyes and listen for sounds not meant for ears. A crack, a groan, a pulse, soft, regular, like a heartbeat of ice. Gravity here is a metronome, not driving you forward, but keeping time. And as we rise gently again, you feel a tug, soft but persistent. The pull of something grand floating farther out. Saturn is waiting, and it does not sing alone. It has dancers. Saturn welcomes you like a dream you forgot you remembered. Its rings stretch out in impossible elegance, bright bands of ice and shadow, orbiting in perfect formation. They do not hum loudly, nor shimmer noisily. They whisper with movement, 1,000 million particles sweeping through space in a soundless symphony. Saturn's gravity does not press, it conducts. We descend through soft clouds, pale golds, faded greys, endless cream. Saturn's atmosphere is gentle in appearance but deep. Like Jupiter, it is gas, not ground. We drift downward, not toward a floor, but into a layering of pressure and temperature, each level denser, more enclosed. The light dims slowly, as if a curtain is being drawn in slow motion. The gravity here is near Earth's, but more diffused, spread out in a wide enveloping calm, and sound in these upper layers travels well, better than you'd expect. The atmosphere here is dense enough for echoes, deep enough for timbre. Close your eyes and listen. The planet itself is quiet but not silent. There are winds, fast, steady, circular, not as violent as Jupiter's but still immense. If you could ride them, you'd hear a smooth, endless rush, not a howl, but a hush stretched into music. Imagine the sound of silk pulled tight across a drum. Saturn's winds don't strike, they rap. Then come the rings. You rise back up, through the gauze of atmosphere toward those impossible arcs of orbiting ice. They are not solid, not smooth. They are made of countless fragments, from grains of sand to house-sized boulders, all moving together in harmony at incredible speed. You float through them, slowly. The gravity here is lighter, more nuanced, still tethering the rings but delicately. Each chunk of ice moves in orbit, guided gently by Saturn's pull. If you were to touch one, just brush your gloved fingers across its surface, it would tremble like a frozen harp string. But instead of twang, you would feel pulse, motion converted into rhythm by the absence of air. Sound here is percussion without air. Tap one fragment, and the vibration moves through it, into the next and the next. It becomes a wave of quiet contact, a chain of gravity-guided touch. Like dominoes that don't fall, but vibrate. Imagine standing still as a collision happens nearby, one shard grazing another. Not explosive, but gentle. The tone of ice striking ice, shaped by space and inertia. The sound would be thin, sharp, crystalline, and entirely internal. You wouldn't hear it in your helmet, but your bones might. This is not music you listen to. This is music you wear. Pause in the middle of the B ring, one of the densest regions. Here, the sheer number of particles makes motion itself into sound. The very act of orbiting creates friction, not the kind that burns, but the kind that hums. If you could amplify the experience, Saturn's rings might sing like 1,000 wind chimes struck by time itself, each fragment ringing out a slightly different tone as it tumbles, shivers, collides, then continues. The gravity orchestrates this perfectly. Each orbit, each spacing, each silent impact is tuned. This is a planet that does not need a voice. Its presence is the voice. Its gravity doesn't dominate, it balances. Now think of a violin bow drawn across a frozen lake. That's the tone here. Slow, cold, resonant. The sound doesn't disappear. It lingers, travelling through the solid, the physical, rather than the air. You drift toward the shadowed side of the rings where the sun barely touches. It's darker, quieter still, a different kind of hush. Here, collisions are fewer, but more intimate. Every movement seems deliberate, every sound imagined. And through it all, Saturn spins. Its magnetic field sings in radio waves, unheard by human ears, but captured by passing spacecraft. If translated into audible frequencies, these emissions resemble something strange and musical. Warbles, tones, shifting patterns. As if the planet is composing a lullaby for no one but itself. Even without ground, without sky, Saturn's gravity makes structure. It gives the music shape. You realize now that gravity doesn't just pull objects, it arranges them, it choreographs. The rings aren't just decoration, they are Saturn's orchestra. Each particle a player, each orbit a measure, each collision a note. Soundless, but not silent. As we drift away from the rings, back through the thinning bands of atmosphere, the hush deepens. Below us, deeper inside the planet, storms churn. Vast, orderly tempests that move in slow spirals. One storm at the North Pole even forms a perfect hexagon, shaped by wave patterns in the wind. If you could hear it, it might resemble a long-held tone, stable, geometric, unnerving. But we will not go deeper. We remain in the quiet above, in the music of arrangement, where gravity makes dancers out of debris. And now we drift again, but not far, for Saturn has a moon, a large one, where gravity is soft but the air is thick. Titan is waiting, with fog and lakes and the slowest rain. Titan emerges like a lantern behind misted glass, not glowing exactly but luminous in a way that suggests things beneath the surface, things moving but slowly. This is Saturn's largest moon, and as we approach, the clouds thicken. Orange haze wraps the world entirely, a veil drawn close around secrets. We land softly, your boots pressing into damp soil the colour of honeyed ash. Gravity here is only a bit more than the moon's, yet the atmosphere is thick, denser than Earth's. This combination is unusual. Gravity, light, and sound all behave differently here. You take a step. The sound is strange, muffled, not absent like on the moon, not pressured like on Venus. Here, sound lingers but bends. Imagine clapping your hands and hearing it not as a sharp echo but as a thud, stretched and slowed, like a stone dropped into heavy syrup. Sound moves slower in Titan's cold, nitrogen-rich atmosphere, but because the air is so dense it carries farther. You could speak in a whisper here and someone far away might hear you, just not quite the way you intended. Pause. Inhale. Even your breath inside your helmet feels heavier. The air presses gently, not oppressively, like a wool blanket pulled close, but not too tight. You walk forward through the fog, and each step pushes the atmosphere aside with a visible softness. A droplet falls, not water, methane, thick, oily rain, falling not quickly, but with the patience of a pendulum. One drop, then another. The sound, if you could hear it against your suit, would be like the click of fingers on glass, sharp but slow. Gravity here doesn't drag the droplets down. It lets them float for just a moment longer. You come upon a lake, not water, methane and ethane. It lies completely still, a mirror of Titan's golden sky. The surface is smoother than oil, less reflective than it should be. You kneel and touch the edge, listening. The tiny waves lap against your glove, not like Earth's ocean, but more like a breath across parchment. Soft, secretive. If you dropped a pebble here, the splash would be muted, a soft plip, followed by gentle ripples that glide outward like silk circles. On Titan, gravity gives waterless lakes a voice, not bold, but beautifully resigned. Now imagine sound within the lake. Beneath the surface, sound would travel faster. The thick, cold liquid would press vibrations outward efficiently. The gurgle of gas bubbles, the shifting of submerged rocks. They would sound like voices in a sealed room, full and ghostly. You move on, through dunes made not of sand but of solid hydrocarbons, grains shaped by wind and time. You run your fingers across the surface of a boulder. It makes no sound, but in this air, if you dragged metal against stone, the screech would be dull, absorbed almost immediately into the haze. Even thunder here would be different. There are storms, rare and powerful. Methane lightning forks through the haze, its brightness diluted by atmosphere. The resulting thunder would not crack but roll, a slow, tremoring travelling for miles. Titan would not give you the drama of Earth's sky, only its persistence, and what of voices. If you spoke aloud, your voice would be altered, lowered, thickened. The dense air resists high frequencies. The crisp edge of a consonant might smear into the background hum. You'd sound not unlike a cello, slowed down and softened, resonating with the gravity that allows you to walk so easily here, almost floating. Pause beside a hill and sit. Listen. There is no true silence. The wind is too slow for that, but it moves, over ridges, through valleys, around you. It makes a sound like old paper being turned one page at a time, deliberate, patient. This is Titan's lullaby. Its soundscape is not made of melody, but of patience. Gravity here doesn't constrain motion, and yet everything moves slowly. So the sound becomes process, descent, collection, delay. Imagine a bell rung on this world. It would chime with a long syrupy tone, a single note spread over seconds, reshaped by density and cold. Not beautiful in the traditional sense, but haunting. And beneath this all, perhaps liquid water, an ocean below the crust like Europa's, silent, sealed, pressurized. Gravity holds it in, allows its existence. Maybe in that deep the pressure creates vibrations of its own. If so, they would be trapped, circling under the surface like whales without songs, waiting for release. You rise again. Titan has no colour changes to signal day from night. Everything is dim, amber, constant. So sound becomes time, a breeze, a drop, a sigh, and always that thick air. Gravity here is not a conductor or a prison, it's an artist working in molasses and mist. As we ascend again, the lakes shrink beneath us. The wind stops carrying sound. Silence grows, but not fully, not yet. Ahead, we see a strange tilt, a world that spins sideways. Uranus calls, pale, cold, forgotten. Its gravity sings in half tones. Uranus tilts like a dream turned on its side. As we approach, the pale blue sphere rotates not top to bottom like most worlds, but rolling east to west, like a sleeper tossing gently in slow motion. Its rings encircle it vertically, like a crown placed by a distracted hand. Everything here feels askew, but not chaotic, just distant. The descent is calm. The atmosphere is cold, soft and featureless. No storms roar, no colours swirl. Uranus doesn't shout. It drifts. Its gravity is delicate, just a bit less than Earth's, and shaped by silence. We slip into the upper atmosphere. Here, sound is a suggestion. The air is thin, even thinner than Saturn's, but still enough to carry a whisper, if whispered gently enough. Wind flows, slow and wide, like breath over a frozen plain. It doesn't push, it reminds. You try to listen. At first, nothing. Not even your suit makes much noise. But gradually, as your senses adjust, you begin to feel rather than hear the presence of motion. A low vibration beneath notice, like music meant for sleeping giants. Uranus does not make melody. It holds drone. Like a slow organ chord sustained for hours, gravity here flattens and stretches sound. A drop of ice falling from a cloud would take longer to land. Its impact would be muted, delayed, deepened. Imagine a xylophone in a fog bank. Each note struck would linger too long, then blur into the next. Uranus is not for rhythm. It is for tone. A single, subtle tone held between worlds. You feel it not in your ears, but in the joints of your fingers, in the slight delay between your movement and the planet's response. You descend lower. The clouds thicken, soft layers of hydrogen, helium and methane. Light filters weakly here. Everything is blue and grey and quiet. You try to gauge distance, but nothing feels close or far. Gravity, though present, becomes more of a presence than a pull. A world without surface. No ground to strike, no cliff to echo from. Sound is lost here. It escapes direction, shape, or texture. If you spoke aloud, your voice would move outward in a mist, quickly fading into nothingness. Not because it's silenced, but because it is absorbed. Still, beneath the surface, deeper inside this sideways turning world, there are layers that shift, currents that roll, pressures that equalize, and when they move, they likely make sound. But sound shaped by alien physics, by cold not known on Earth, by magnetism tilted strangely, by gravity that acts at an angle. It's possible the planet sings internally, like a struck wine glass placed in snow. Resonance with no ring. Imagine riding one of those internal waves, the slow motion of a layered atmosphere pushed by thermal gradients. You wouldn't hear a roar. You'd feel a pressure change that arrives with the gentleness of a thought. It might feel like memory or sleep. Pause here, in the middle of nothing. Above and below, the cloud layers move like breath held in a dream. You try to imagine sound, but sound doesn't behave here. The rules are different. A bell rung would not chime, it would hum, a dull metallic tone held in place by the stillness of air. Uranus is the quietest of the giants. Its storms do not rage, its winds are fast but without voice, and its rotation, so strange, so sideways, creates long seasons of dusk and dawn, light barely moving, sound barely forming. Its gravity turns all motion inward. A snowflake here would fall like a dancer on silk. This sound, if heard, would be an echo slowed by ice, and perhaps beneath the cold. Like the others, there may be an ocean, not of water, but of slush and pressure. It may shift, it may groan, but even those groans would be soft, trapped in deep silence. You float now, no longer descending, no longer rising, just still. Let your breath slow. Uranus is a lullaby with no lyrics, just tone, just orientation, just gravity pulling everything, gently sideways, and then ahead the wind picks up. Not here, there, farther out. The blue turns darker, the silence sharpens, Neptune is calling, and its gravity sings sharper songs. Neptune arrives like a storm in slow motion. Cobalt blue, cold as breath frozen mid-sigh, yet alive with motion you can't quite see until you're deep inside it. This is the farthest planet, the final official station of our solar symphony, and yet it moves. Fast winds, deep pressures, unseen depths. Its gravity is similar to Earth's but colder, more precise. Gravity here is not an embrace, it is a sculptor's hand, etching sound in sharper lines. You descend through darkening clouds. The air thickens faster than expected. Hydrogen, helium, methane. You feel resistance, movement, direction. The upper atmosphere hums with energy, not loud, not frantic, just tight, like tension wound in deep strings. Then you hear it, or perhaps feel it first. Winds faster than any in the solar system, more than 1,000 miles per hour, but they don't shriek, not like storms on Earth. The density here gives them weight, so the sound, if translated into something hearable, would be lower than thunder, smoother than song, a constant rush, pitched low and wide, wrapping around you in layers. Imagine standing in the center of a hurricane where the eye never forms. The sound is not circular, it is horizontal, bands of wind passing in tightly organized belts. Gravity helps hold them in place. It does not resist this chaos, it choreographs it. A bolt of lightning flashes somewhere below, invisible behind clouds, but the light reaches you. The thunder would not reach as easily. It would curve, fold, sink. Neptune's soundscape is bent by pressure and chill. Imagine thunder shaped like a tunnel, always curving back on itself. Pause. Hover. Let your body rest motionless in the wind's grip. Your suit vibrates, not from impact, but from movement around you. Vibrations in the fluid dance of air. Sound here is not a single wave, it is a tide, and Neptune's gravity makes every tone glide faster than your thoughts. If you spoke here, your voice would be wrapped tightly into the wind. It would stretch thin and slip away. Even shouting would feel like whispering into wool, yet you would feel the vibration. Words would become vibration on your tongue, a tactile but vanishing presence. Beneath these storms, deeper, is mystery. A liquid ocean, not of water, but super-pressurized materials, possibly slushy ammonia, possibly exotic forms of ice. If those layers move, and they surely do, the friction would create deep planetary tones, not surface sounds, but internal waves, like a foghorn buried beneath miles of sea and stone. Neptune may have a core, If it does, and if it quakes, those quakes would ring through the layers above, bent by gravity into shapes we cannot imagine, echoes folded into echoes. And above all of this, above the wind, the clouds, the pressures and unknowns, is the magnetosphere. It spins oddly, not aligned with the planet's axis, but at an angle, twisted. As it moves, it stirs up fields of charged particles. These emit radio waves, bursts and pulses recorded by passing spacecraft. When translated into sound, they resemble chirps, whistles, distant code. If Saturn is a string quartet, Neptune is a jazz improvisation played in the deepest bass register, erratic, complex, shadowed. Now look outward. This world, spinning fast in darkness, circles the sun once every 165 Earth years. Its seasons are long and quiet. Its sound, too, is stretched over time, not momentary but epical. You float again in the upper layers just above the fast winds. Here, the sound seems to still, not stop, just settle. Like a final chord played and held indefinitely. Gravity pulls the planet tight. Sound speeds through it, not loudly, but clearly. Everything here feels like signal. Even the silence has structure. You drift higher. The clouds grow thinner. The pressure drops. Below, the storms still churn. But up here, nothing moves quickly anymore. Neptune fades into the background. Its song continues, whether you listen or not. Now turn away, toward the edge. Beyond Neptune, the light grows dim. But one more world waits, small, cold, farther still, Pluto, and beyond it, the silence of space itself. Pluto does not pull you, it waits. At the edge of everything, this tiny world floats like a snowflake caught in a slow breath. Smaller than Earth's moon, lighter than any of the planets, Pluto holds gravity like a whisper. You do not fall toward it. You drift. It doesn't capture you. It simply invites. As you descend, nothing presses against you. No rushing wind, no dense atmosphere. The silence here is wide, not empty. Spacious, like the pause between stars. Your feet touch the surface with no ceremony. A dry crunch, ice, nitrogen frost, mountains carved from frozen water, plains smoothed by methane, and all of it barely held down. The gravity here is a mere fraction of Earth's, enough to keep things grounded but not enough to hurry them. If you throw a pebble, it arcs high, slow, distant, not bold, but graceful. Sound, too, moves differently. The air is so thin, so barely present, that a whisper would vanish before it began. And yet, vibration remains. Kneel. Place your palm against the frozen ground. It's cold, of course, but beneath that cold is age, and beneath that age is motion. Not much, not loud, but real. You listen. There is no wind, no thunder, no tectonic groan, but you imagine the faintest of tremors, ancient contractions of ice, shifting with temperature, flexing under solar tides. If Pluto sings, it does so in hours, not seconds. Its rhythms stretch across seasons. Now rise. Walk slowly across the vast plain of Sputnik Planitia, a heart-shaped glacier made of frozen nitrogen. The surface is smooth, broken only by polygonal ridges, like the crust of a pie gently cracked by age. Imagine walking across it barefoot. Your steps would make no sound, but each footfall would send out tiny invisible waves, a footstep that echoes not through air, but through ice. Gravity here doesn't ground you, it guides you. Each motion is deliberate. Each sound, if it could be made, would stretch like breath in winter. Above you, Charon, Pluto's largest moon, looms impossibly close. The two bodies are locked in mutual orbit, always facing one another. Their gravity is in conversation, not loud, but loyal. Imagine the tidal forces between them as music, Not the crash of waves, but the tension of string and bow held steady for centuries. Somewhere below, there may be a subsurface ocean, buried beneath the crust, warmed slightly by internal heat and tidal interactions. If it exists, then it moves, and if it moves, then it speaks, through the language of vibration. In that sea, sound would travel well. A pebble dropped might ring like a bell, a quake might ripple through kilometers, but that sound never breaks the surface. It's sealed, protected, like a secret kept forever. Pause. Close your eyes. What does Pluto sound like? It is not a planet of noise, it is a planet of feeling, the hush of longing, the cold chime of distance, the muted resonance of being forgotten, but still turning. You stand still, and time slows. A frost forms on the edge of your visor. The sun is only a bright star now, and the ambient light is silvery, soft. Shadows here are long, unhurried, and the silence is absolute, not oppressive, but complete. The gravity here does not pull you down. It holds you in place just enough. Enough to remind you that even at the edge there is presence, and even silence has its tone. As we rise, Pluto fades, not vanishing, just returning to its patient drift. And we drift too, past the planets now, beyond atmospheres, into the vast stillness between stars. And yet, gravity does not stop, and neither does sound. Out here, between planets, the silence becomes profound, so vast and perfect it almost presses against you. There is no air, no ground, no atmosphere to carry sound. Space is a vacuum, and in a vacuum, sound as we know it cannot travel, but gravity does. Even here, in this great dark, gravity flows. It pulls, it bends, it weaves unseen threads between stars and planets, moons and particles. It shapes the orbits of comets. It holds galaxies together. It moves light, time, and space itself. And in doing so, it creates rhythm. You float now, untethered to any world. Nothing pushes you, nothing stops you. Movement is only inertia, slow, silent drifting. But if you close your eyes, you can feel something deeper, a sense of direction, not of location, but of gravity's voice beneath the silence. There is no up or down here, only toward and away, only gravity and the absence of it. And still, you imagine sound. Imagine a single particle struck by another, their collision sending out a ripple, not through air but through fields, through space-time itself. If that ripple was sound, it would be a whisper 1 billion years long, not heard, but known. Satellites that pass through this space carry instruments tuned not to sound, but to vibration. They detect particles brushing against solar wind, magnetic pulses, echoes of things unseen. When translated into audio frequencies, these phenomena create eerie, beautiful tones, alien but musical. Imagine standing here and translating the pressure of sunlight into sound, a shimmering, high-pitched chime that grows fainter the farther from the star you drift. Imagine the gravitational pull of a planet you cannot see far ahead, warping time just slightly, and the shift becoming a change in pitch, a bend in tone. Imagine silence that bends. Here, sound is not pressure through air, it is meaning through pattern. Each movement of gravity leaves behind a shape, a spiral, an ellipse, a wave, and each of these can be imagined as a kind of music. The falling of a comet is a glissando. The orbital resonance of moons is a harmony. The movement of two stars around one another is a duet. Even when nothing touches, gravity sings. You drift toward a place between stars, far from any sun, and yet you're never outside the reach of gravity. It connects everything. The gravity of Earth still touches you faintly. The sun's grip, though weaker now, still holds. Even the galaxy pulls at you. And all of these forces woven together create a symphony that no ear could ever hear. But you're not just listening with ears, you're listening with attention. Here, gravity's song is not melody, but sculpture. It shapes you. It slows time. It bends light. It holds memories in orbits, thoughts in motion, breath in balance. Pause. Do not try to move. Let the quiet settle. In this deep stillness, the absence of sound reveals the structure beneath. You begin to sense the gravity of stars you've never seen, their weight, their presence, their pull, and in the patterns of their motion, you hear the architecture of everything. Sound without air, music without notes, only gravity and the shapes it sculpts in space. And that is not silence. That is everything. Now. Feel something sharper ahead. Not vast, not soft, but dense, small, sudden. The next movement in gravity's music is not a breeze. It is collapse. It is raw. It is a black hole. Ahead, space tightens. Where once the stars drifted quietly behind you, now the darkness itself bends inward. Not like a curtain drawing closed, but like the fabric of reality being pulled through a point. A black hole does not shine, it pulls, and it is pulling everything. You do not fall toward it, you are drawn. Its gravity grows stronger with every breath, not incrementally, but exponentially. A black hole does not whisper, it devours. There is no surface, no edge, only an vent horizon, the place where light can no longer escape. Cross that, and even time loses meaning. But before you reach it, there is something else, something loud, not in sound, but in structure. The space around a black hole vibrates. Gravity here does not gently shape, it tears, and in doing so it creates ripples in space-time, not air, not matter, but the very fabric of existence. These are gravitational waves, and they carry the deepest song the universe can produce. You cannot hear them with ears, but imagine this. Two black holes spiral toward each other, faster, tighter, closer. Their mass, their pull, their momentum distorts space-time until in a single instant they collide and become one. The impact sends out a wave, a pulse, travelling across the universe. If that wave was sound, it would be lower than any note we can sing. A chirp in the fabric of time. Instruments on Earth have detected these waves, and when we translate them into audible frequencies, they become a strange, deep, sudden whoop. Not sharp, not bright, just final. A black hole sings once, then becomes silent forever. You float near the accretion disk now, the ring of gas and matter spiraling toward the black hole, heating up as it spins faster and faster. The friction creates intense radiation, light we can see and other wavelengths we cannot. But there is structure here too, patterns in the chaos, rhythms in the fall. Imagine a violin string stretched thinner and tighter than nature allows, and then plucked by a collapsing star. The resulting vibration isn't heard, it is felt by the universe. The material in the disk moves near the speed of light. Time bends, gravity warps, sound, as we next, ceases to behave. But even here, we can still imagine it. The roar of atoms accelerated to death. A scream that never stops, yet never escapes. And if you fall in, not all at once. First, stretched, elongated, spaghettified by differential gravity. Your head feels a stronger pull than your feet. You're drawn out, unravelling toward the singularity. But in that final descent, before all light, sound and meaning are gone, there is a kind of last vibration, a final harmonic. Imagine the moment of your fall as a single piano note struck as hard as physics allows, held not for seconds, but for the end of time. Even the space behind you warps. Light bends around the hole. Time slows. You can see your own future approaching. The sound, though silent, is the deepest tone in the universe, the gravity of collapse translated into frequency. Pause here, hover on the edge. You do not cross, not yet. You observe. Everything here moves faster the closer it is to the center. You can almost see the rhythm in the rotation of matter. The black hole is not just a void, it is an instrument tuned to the universe's oldest key. Scientists have modeled the oscillations of the event horizon itself. When disturbed, say, by an infalling object, it can ring. Not with sound, but with gravitational vibration. These are called quasi-normal modes, the echo of a black hole returning to silence after being touched. Imagine that ring, not once, but repeating, fading, spiraling into flatness. That is the sound of gravity's deepest breath. And now you drift backward, away from the rim, back into stillness. The black hole stays behind, not defeated, not past, but respected. Its music is a final chord held so long it becomes silence again, and somewhere far off, beyond the pull of light, a neutron star waits. The black hole fades into the dark behind you, an absence with weight. But ahead, something stranger appears. Smaller than a city, yet heavier than a star, a neutron star spins in silence. You approach. It does not look like much, just a sphere, dense and smooth, glowing faintly in X-rays. But the closer you get, the more unnatural it becomes. This is no ordinary object. This is the collapsed core of a once mighty star, crushed by gravity into something so compact, so extreme, it vibrates with forces beyond comprehension. And if a black hole is silence made infinite, a neutron star is sound made solid. You hover nearby, careful. Its gravity is intense, not as strong as a black hole's, but focused, concentrated. You feel it not just in your body, but in your thoughts. It tugs on you, not with violence, but with authority, as if the star knows something you don't and means to show you. It spins. Some spin slowly, once every few seconds. Others, called pulsars, spin hundreds of times per second, faster than a kitchen blender with the mass of a sun. The magnetic field around it is immense, dragging particles in arcs of energy that shine like cosmic lighthouses. Each spin, each pulse is perfectly timed. Gravity holds the star's structure, and within that structure it rings, literally. If you could strike a neutron star, it would vibrate, like a bell, but unimaginably denser, lower and longer. The entire star could oscillate with what scientists call starquakes. Its crust, though only meters thick, can crack under pressure, releasing waves of sound-like motion through its interior. Imagine the chime, not high, not pleasant, a pure, devastating frequency, resonating in nuclear matter. This sound would not escape in air. There is no air. It would escape in gravitational waves rippling out through space-time itself. These waves move quietly through the void, whispering to instruments light years away. They are not sound as we know it. They are space-time singing. You drift closer. The spinning creates a rhythm. Tick, tick, tick. Each rotation beams radio waves in a perfect pattern, a heartbeat in the dark. To a distant observer, the pulses arrive like a metronome. Some even keep better time than atomic clocks. You feel it now, pulsing through your chest, a drum not struck but felt. This is not imagined music. This is real. If you tuned a radio to the right frequency, you could hear the beeping of a pulsar, an actual sound born from motion shaped by gravity carried across light years. The star speaks in rhythm, and beneath that rhythm, structure. The matter inside a neutron star is so compressed that atoms have collapsed. electrons and protons fused into neutrons. A teaspoon of its material would weigh billions of tons, and if it shifts, even slightly, the resulting quake might echo through the star for hours. This is not a place of chaos. It is a place of control, tension, balance, pressure, all working in tight harmony. Sound here is never wasted. Every oscillation carries weight. Now, pause. Imagine tapping the star with one perfect note. The response would not come all at once. It would resonate through the entire object, its waves circling through layers of solid, liquid, and perhaps exotic phases of matter, quark soup maybe, until the vibration stabilized. The ringdown, that fading vibration, could last for days. If we had the right ears, or the right tools, we could listen to that song and know the shape of the universe's pressure. We might even know something about time itself. Neutron stars don't just reflect sound, they store it. Each rotation, each quake, each pulse is a recording, a signature left by gravity's greatest sculptor, the echo of collapse frozen in motion, and now you drift again, letting the rhythm of the pulses fade behind you. You were never in danger here, only in awe, and now a new vibration reaches you, not from a single point, but from the universe itself. The fabric of space is moving, it is breathing. Gravitational waves, the final music of motion. Let's listen. You drift now in open space, far from stars, far from planets. No surfaces beneath you, no winds around you. The silence is perfect, too perfect. And then, from deep within the void, something moves. Not through matter, not through air, but through space itself. A gravitational wave. It does not come like thunder. It does not roar. It passes, quietly, powerfully, like a breeze shifting, the folds of a dream you didn't know you were having. Gravitational waves are not sound in the traditional sense. They are changes in the shape of space-time, ripples caused by the motion of massive bodies, black holes colliding, neutron stars embracing, even the echo of the Big Bang. You do not hear them, you experience them. Imagine the very space around you stretching and compressing just slightly, the distance between your hands lengthening by less than the width of a proton, then shortening again. That change, though small, is a signal, a frequency, a pulse. If translated into sound, a gravitational wave might resemble a rising chirp, the soft escalation of a cosmic string plucked and let go. Not a scream, not a song, a shape. The detectors on Earth, vast observatories like LIGO and Virgo, are built to listen to this silence. They do not wait for noise, they wait for pattern. And when it comes, when a gravitational wave passes, they record a whisper in the structure of reality itself. Pause here. Feel it. You're floating in a dimension that sings without matter. Each wave is a message, travelling across the universe for billions of years. Some were born before Earth formed, before the sun was born, before time wore a face we recognise. The sound of gravity moving, a message of motion. Two black holes collide in a distant galaxy. You feel their final orbit, their spiralling dance. The waves they send are not desperate, they are precise, the last notes of a duet that ends in silence. Or perhaps you feel a neutron starquake, its crust cracking after eons of pressure. The vibration moves out, and though it will take millennia to reach anywhere, you receive it here, in this moment. Gravity does not forget. You realize slowly that these waves are not occasional, they are everywhere. The universe is full of them, tiny, constant, layered. They pass through you now, not one at a time but in harmonics. Some are rapid, some are stretched. Like an orchestra tuning in reverse, each instrument remembering its note long after the music ended. the gravity of merging galaxies, the heartbeat of dying stars, the sigh of space-time folding around invisible forces. These waves shape everything. They do not stop, and in them we hear the sound of connection. Gravity, the force that holds atoms to planets, planets to stars, stars to galaxies, becomes audible only in its most violent, most magnificent moments. And even then, it arrives like breath. A gravitational wave is not sound, but it can be read as music. We translate its frequency, we play it back, and in doing so, we hear the voice of the cosmos, not spoken, not sung, but woven into the background of everything. Here, in this moment, you're surrounded by that music. You've always been. And now, for the first time, you notice it. The sound of space not as absence, but as vibration, as presence, as gravity, whispering in chords stretched over time, and as the waves pass. Through you, you feel the tempo change, slower, gentler. The universe is calming. You're drifting back now, back toward the planets, back toward a place with sky, with weight, with wind. You're not returning to silence. You're returning to a different music. The gravity of Earth is waiting. The Earth appears small at first, wrapped in blue and cloud, floating quietly in the sea of black. After all we've drifted through, thunderless moons, howling giants, whispering stars, the sight of Earth feels strangely fragile. But as you approach, you begin to remember. This is where gravity first gave us sound. Not just the abstract resonance of cosmic waves or deep pressure chords, but voices, laughter, the crack of wood in fire, the hush of ocean tides. Earth is not the loudest place in the solar system, it is the most familiar. You pass through the atmosphere slowly, the air thickens, the silence of space yields to the subtle roar of entry. But it is not violent, it is not friction and flames. You come down gently, like a feather caught in the breath of a planet. Gravity pulls you downward with a firmness you haven't felt in what seems like years, and then finally, you land. Grass beneath you, soil, wind curling past your ears. Listen, truly listen. Birdsong, each note dancing in perfectly shaped air, tree branches creaking as they sway, a river moving over rock, never still, and underneath it all, that sound you never thought of as music, footsteps, the soft percussion of your own body in motion, made possible by this planet's pull. Earth's gravity isn't just strong enough to hold us down, it's perfect enough to let sound breathe, to let it echo and decay, to give it personality. If Earth's gravity were weaker, sound would be faint, scattered. If stronger, it would be too dense, too short-lived. But here, every note, from a child's whisper to a cello's low drone, lives just long enough. You walk slowly now, down a path of fallen leaves, each one rustling under your boots with its own quiet voice. Gravity cradles each sound, curates each vibration, pulls each wave just firmly enough to your ears. You pause by a lake, watch the water move. Ripples form and fade, a stone falls in. The plop is soft, rounded, not heavy, not light, just right. A single note made by a single action in perfect balance with this world's pull. On Earth, gravity is not just a physical law, it is a composer. It gives thunder its growl, rain its rhythm, speech its shape. Every language ever spoken, every song ever sung, every note ever hummed, all tuned to this gravity. This one, yours. You lie down in the grass, let the sky cover you. The air presses against your chest with the pressure of a lullaby. Gravity pulls you into the ground, but not as weight, as rest. Breathe. Gravity hums through your bones, slow and steady, like the final note in a symphony that never truly ends. The planets spin above you now, silent in their distance, each with its own tone, its own weight, its own song. But Earth is a choir, a harmony of voices shaped by pressure, motion and life. You remember now what all the other worlds lacked. Not volume, not beauty, but connection. Gravity gives you sound, but it also gives you someone to hear it with. A breath, a whisper, a voice. The music of Earth is the music of presence, and you are here, still, held, listening. Even now you remain still, face to the sky, held in Earth's quiet gravity. You are home, but everything feels changed, because now, when you listen, you truly listen. The air around you carries more than temperature. It carries weight, pressure, meaning. Gravity, invisible and constant, curls through every sound you know. A child's laughter in the park, the rustle of paper in an open window, the quiet creak of a chair beneath someone sitting slowly at the edge of sleep, all of it, every vibration, only possible because gravity holds the air close, allows molecules to touch, to dance, to speak. And now that you've been to other worlds, you hear these ordinary sounds not as noise, but as miracles. Each one is gravity made audible. You walk slowly now, passing through a grove of trees. Their leaves shiver in the breeze, and that soft, endless sound, the hush of a living world, follows you. You reach out, touch the trunk of an old oak. The bark is rough, alive. You knock gently, just once, and the sound is instant, not lost, not distorted, just there. A knock, a reply. On Mars it would be faint, on the moon, absent. But here it returns to you, wrapped in the air, echoing only briefly before fading into silence. You pause by a stream. The water flows over stone, not loudly, but clearly. That sound, a soft, layered gurgle, is gravity in partnership with motion. Water pulled downward, always downward, carving its way through rock, singing the same song it's sung for millennia. You hear it now like you never did before. Every splash is tuned. Bend down, cup the water in your hands. It falls between your fingers, splattering onto the rocks below. Listen closely. Every drop, every scatter, every moment is gravity choosing how sound will form. You rise again, pass beneath a passing plane. The roar overhead, distant but resonant, reminds you. Even the skies are shaped by this pull. Lift exists because gravity does, and when you hear the rumble fade away into the blue, you're hearing gravity let go. You walk further, into a town, a city. Traffic hums, footsteps echo, voices drift past, in laughter, in conversation, in song. A saxophone player on a street corner bends notes against the air, and you realize, without gravity, even music would be trapped inside us. A silent art, an unrealized thought. But here it breathes, it becomes, and it changes us. Stop, let it all wash over you. The low thrum of escalators, the hiss of espresso machines, a dog barking in the distance, a train arriving, on rusted tracks. Each sound arrives as if it always meant to, perfectly timed. A global orchestra conducted by a force no one sees, and few remember to thank. You smile softly, because now every sound, every creak and sigh and flutter has become sacred. Not because it's rare, but because you've heard the absence of it. You've been to places where footsteps don't echo, where air does not carry, where lightning roars in silence and oceans whisper beneath 100 miles of ice. And now you are here, on the one world where gravity and air and life all agreed to sing together, Earth, where gravity sounds like home and where sleep waits, not in silence, but in symphony. Let gravity hold you. Let sound cradle you. Let the weight of this world draw you down, down into rest, down into quiet, down into dreams. And now, we sleep. The planets have spun, the stars have hummed, and gravity, that ever-present hush, has cradled each note gently in its arms. You've wandered across moons of dust and giants of wind, past oceans beneath ice and storms without sound. You've drifted into rings of silence, fields of rhythm, waves of pressure felt more than heard, and yet, here you are, still, back in the gravity you've always known, the pull that keeps your breath slow, your body warm, your thoughts safe. Close your eyes. Let the music fade, not in a final note, but in a slow dissolving tone that carries you deeper. There is no need to rise now, nothing to solve, nothing to reach. You're exactly where you belong, in the soft gravity of sleep, the kind that doesn't press down, but lifts gently from within, the kind that turns every sigh into a lullaby, the kind that sings to you not with words, but with warmth. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts scatter like dust in moonlight. Let the silence wrap around you like rings of Saturn, slow and eternal. You've travelled across a universe of sound, and now you return, not with memory, but with feeling, the weightless feeling of being held by something quiet, strong, and invisible. This is the sound of sleep. This is the song of gravity. This is the dream waiting beneath your pillow. Let go. Fall slowly, fall gently, fall all the way in.